everybody. How's it going? Yeah? Everybody good? Excited for wildlife coming up in just a few weeks. That's great. That's good to hear. I have seasonal depression. No! Am I the only one? Seasonal depression? Anybody hate the winter? Just me? We got a few in the front. There you go. I'm not a fan of the cold. Like, I wish that it would be 95 degrees year-round, just maximum humidity, maximum heat. You know that feeling when you open up the oven and like just a wave of heat hits your face? I want my body to feel like that when I walk outside. Like, I love the heat. I love the heat. I hate the winter, especially because every January, my Dallas Cowboys, the first round exits. Every time. They don't fail to break my heart. They don't fail.
I'm sorry about him.
I hate the winter. I really do. I mean, it's cold. There's no leaves on the trees. The joy is just sucked out of life. Every morning I wake up, you know what I'm thinking? Today, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. Well, that is the title of the series that we're going to be going through over the next 3 weeks. I'm not feeling it. We're going to be talking about apathy and zeal, and how to go from apathy to zeal. Now, don't be intimidated by those words. It's really not too complicated. Apathy is like the winter for me. It's when I'm just not feeling it. And I think if we're all being honest, even as Christians, we have different seasons in our lives where we're feeling apathetic. I know for myself, there have been times I've even been up on stage singing. I've been down here preaching, and there's kind of just this facade going on because it looks like everything's great. It looks like I'm passionate, but sometimes I'm really just not feeling it. I don't feel the Lord in my life. I don't see where He's taking me. I don't feel conviction or compassion, and I'm just not actually in it. Well, to find answers about this, we're going to look at 2 Samuel 11 and 12. It's the story of David and Bathsheba. What do we know about David? Well, one, he was king, and he was raised up to be king because he's described as a man after the Lord's own heart, which is a great title. That's awesome for him. But here's the thing, David wasn't perfect. He wasn't. Leading up to this passage, David had already let his guard down. He was taking on a bunch of wives. Deuteronomy 17:17 told the kings not to take on a bunch of wives, but I guess he had enough riz and he had enough time that he went ahead and did it anyways. And he had all of these wives. And David never repented of it. He knew it was sin because marriage is between one man and one woman, but he never repented of it, which pushed him to fall further into apathy. But what is apathy? Well, I have a definition for us, and it's also my main point. Apathy is the heart, mind, and spirit drifting away from what God has for you. It's when you can't feel what you know you should. It's when your life is just blurry. It's just a fog. And when you're going through the motions and coasting in your spiritual life. Now, before we move on, we need to pause real quick. Because is God any less deserving of our praise and worship simply because we're not feeling it? There should be a resounding no here. Of course not. God is worthy of our praise. The intent of the message today is to not idolize feelings and raise them above everything and use it as an excuse to disobey or to be lazy. That's not the intent of the message today. God is worthy of our worship and surrender at all times. Amen? Amen. But God did create us to have feelings. And that's important. We don't want to ignore that. They're not everything, but they are important. And we ought to honor God with our feelings. So to learn more about this, we're going to turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11. And reading in verse 1, it says, "In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle." Well, who was king at this time? It was David. So it was the time for David to go out to battle. It says, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all over Israel, and they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. Already in the first verse, we see David being where he's not supposed to be. He was supposed to be with his army fighting the battle and fighting the war, but you know what? He wasn't feeling it. So he decided he would stay home. And in verse 2 it says, it happened late one afternoon when David arose from his couch. So you're telling me, while his army, the people of God, are all fighting the war that they ought to be fighting, and he's just chilling on his couch, probably in his pajamas, eating potato chips, watching Family Guy. I mean, what is he doing? He's just chilling. He didn't care about what he should care about. And it says he was walking on the roof of the king's house, and he saw from the roof a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. Uh-oh. Temptation. Well, what does David do? He sends for her. Her name is Bathsheba. And he gets her pregnant. Uh-oh again. Well, David made a mistake here. You're not supposed to do that. Does he take responsibility for his actions? He's like, no, man, I gotta get out of this. I gotta fix it. I gotta try to cover it up. So he calls for her husband, whose name is Uriah, and he was off at the war. So he pulls Uriah from the war and brings him to the palace, and he's like, Uriah, how's the war going? And Uriah's like, dude, it's a war. I don't know what to tell you. But then David's like, hey, why don't you go home to your wife? Me, queen, right? He was trying to set it up so that Uriah would think that he got Bathsheba pregnant. But here's the difference, and this is key. Uriah was not a man of apathy like David was. He was a man of zeal, a man of conviction. He looked at David and he said, no, I'm supposed to be at the battle. There's a war to be fought. I cannot go home to my wife. And he slept that night on the doorstep of the king's palace because he was a man of conviction. David's like, dang, what am I supposed to do now? Well, the next day he takes it a step further. And he gets Uriah drunk, thinking maybe he can trick him. But even then, Uriah could not be tricked. He wouldn't go home to his wife because he was a man of zeal, a man of commitment. So David doubles down even further. He sends Uriah back to the war with a letter for Joab, the leader of the army. And in verse 15 it says, in the letter he wrote, set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. What is happening? How far gone is David's heart? He's going to take someone else's wife, get her pregnant, try to blame shift it to him, and when that doesn't work, he wants to kill him? He has no compassion, no conviction. His heart is gone at this point. But guess what? That's exactly what happens. He sends Uriah back, and Uriah dies. And Joab sends a messenger back to David to let him know that Uriah did indeed die. Well, how did David respond? In verse 25 it says, David said to the messenger, thus shall you say to Joab, do not let this matter displease you, for the sword devours now one, and now another. That's an old proverb that means, yeah, these things happen in war. People die. It basically means it is what it is. That was his response to killing someone. It is what it is? How far gone is your heart? You don't care about anything but yourself, David. He made a mistake, killed someone, and his response was, it is what it is. And in verse 25 it says, when the wife of Uriah, Bathsheba, right, heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she lamented over her husband. She was sad, she was crying, she was weeping. In verse 27, it says, when the mourning was over, it would be a period, right, that the Israelites would take to honor the death of someone, to mourn, to weep. It would be about 7 days. And it says, when that period was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. So, while she's over there crying and weeping, he's just sitting over here waiting. Finish your tears. It's okay. As soon as you're done, you're going to come home to me and I'm going to wife you up. That's apathy. Guys, he didn't see her pain. He didn't care about it. He had no compassion for her. And we're just left asking ourselves, does David get to get away with all of this? He's causing so much pain to all of these people. Does he just have no consequences? I mean, he doesn't seem to care about anything but himself. His heart is so far gone. And in verse 27 it says, but the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. And in chapter 12, God responds. He sends a prophet named Nathan to confront David. Nathan tells David this parable about a man who had everything, but decided to take from a man who had hardly anything. He was trying to use it as an example of David having all of these wives, right, but still wanting someone else's one wife. But David didn't see that. He thought it was just somebody else, and he got infuriated. He was angry. He was like, whoever did that, I'm furious. They deserve the worst. And then Nathan stands up and says, David, that's you. You're missing it. You're not understanding what I'm trying to tell you, what the Lord is trying to tell you. You are the one that is in sin. But David doesn't see it. See, David was so blind to his sin that Nathan had to spell it out for him. Because David felt no conviction and he had no grasp of his sin and the state of his heart. He was apathetic. Well, let's go back to our definition of apathy. Apathy is the heart, mind, and spirit drifting away from what God has for you. Let's see how we see this in this story with David. Let's analyze David's heart. David, he felt no compassion for the people around him. He didn't care about the success of his army. He stayed home. He didn't have any compassion for them. He didn't care about Uriah's life. He sent him to die. And he definitely didn't care about Bathsheba's sorrow. He waited patiently in the corner until she finished crying just so he could wipe her up. Well, how often do our hearts get so selfish that the people around us become irrelevant to us? We walk into school ignoring all of the people that God has placed around us that need to hear the name of Jesus, and we walk right past them. Or we come home to our family and we get so angry with our siblings or with our parents, forgetting that they're human too, that we should have compassion for them. Or we walk into a room like this thinking only about ourselves. Consumers wanting to be fed, not looking to the person to the left and right of you that needs your love and compassion. And David also felt no conviction over his sin. He felt no remorse for impregnating Bathsheba. He felt no regret for covering it up. And his response to killing Uriah was, it is what it is. See, sometimes we get so stuck in our sin that we no longer feel bad after we've done it. Some of us in this room have addictions that we've been fighting for so long. And you know what? The first few times it happened, it hurt. We felt convicted. We felt bad. But you know what? It's become such a normal part of our lives, we're completely apathetic. Our heart has drifted away from the conviction. We don't feel it anymore. And let's face it, sometimes the apathy in our hearts is just feeling nothing. No emotions, coasting through life without feeling anything. David reached this point when he got comfortable. Laying on his couch at home, comfy in his pajamas, nothing for his heart to react to. He was comfortable, yes, but empty of emotions also, yes. Don't let comfort kill your calling. Which leads to my first point, and that is an apathetic heart is numb. Turn to your neighbor and say, an apathetic heart is numb. You know that feeling like you've been sitting on the toilet for so long, taking a dump, and then you finally get up and your legs are like wobbly because it's been too long? That's what I'm talking about. It's numb. You don't feel it anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. It's when your heart doesn't feel conviction anymore. It's when it doesn't feel compassion anymore. Maybe not feeling emotion at all. Which leads me to my first note. An apathetic heart lacks compassion, conviction, and emotion. Let's analyze David's mind. David had no vision for the future. He was caught up in what he wanted in the moment that he rejected the future that God had for him. He was fueled by the lust of the present rather than the hope of the future. You catch that? It was always about what was right in front of him, and his response was always about the quickest and easiest solution. If he was faced with temptation, he plunged towards it. If he was faced with a problem, he immediately just tried to solve it, to get out of it, to fix it. Well, when we're presented with temptation, do we remind ourselves of God's promises? Or do we succumb to what is right in front of us? Are we patient to receive the lasting goodness that God gives to us in time? Or are we devoured by our desire? When we're facing a problem, do we just go for the quickest and easiest solution? Or do we trust in the hand of God who works all things for the good of those who follow him? See, God has good plans for you. He does. But that doesn't matter if your eyes are fixed on what you want in the moment. Do you trust in the future God has for you? Or do you take things into your own hands? And David also had no understanding of the present. He didn't see God's hand at work. He couldn't see what God was doing. He couldn't even see the problem. David wasn't with his army. How could he see what God was doing in the war? He couldn't see how God was protecting the Israelites and providing for them because he was chilling on his couch at home. You know what? God sent Uriah to David. And let me tell you, I believe this. When Uriah came to David, it was a reminder for David, this is who you're supposed to be. Right? Because Uriah was a man of conviction, a man of passion, a man of zeal. It was like God was like, look, cut it out. This is what I want you to be. This is who I want you to be. But David didn't see it. He just saw another problem that he wanted to get rid of. And when Nathan came to confront David, it had to be spelled out for him what God was trying to tell him. And sometimes, like David, our laziness, it keeps us from the fight. And we lie around while God is at work all around us, and we don't see it. Because we're blind. That's the thing, apathy blinds you to your calling. And sometimes we need to see the ways that God is doing things to correct our course, to pull us back into his will. But we're blind, and we have no understanding of what God is doing. And that leads me to my second point, and that is that an apathetic mind is blind. Turn to your neighbor and say, an apathetic mind is blind. Everybody put your hand over your eyes like that. What do you see? That's right. You only see nothing. That's what I'm talking about. It's when you can't see. You don't have a vision for your life. You can't see where God is trying to take you. You don't see the man that he wants you to become. You don't see the woman that he wants you to become. You don't even see what he's doing in your life right now. Which leads me to my second note. That is an apathetic mind lacks vision and understanding. But what about David's spirit? Well, David couldn't hear God's voice. See, even when God sent someone to speak to David directly, it needed to be spelled out for David to finally hear it. And maybe you've come here tonight just dying for God to speak to you. Just to hear one word from the Father. Maybe you just want to hear him say, I love you. You know, maybe you do want him to convict you. You're tired of living in the cycle of sin and feeling nothing, and you want him to say a word to you that convicts you. Maybe you want his encouragement, just one word of encouragement from the Father. Maybe you're so lost and disoriented that you're begging for just one word of guidance from God. But it's silence. And David also had no knowledge of God's presence. Now, was there a moment that God wasn't with David? No. God was always with him. But David's sin, it was an act of running from God and distancing himself from the voice, but also the presence of God. And maybe all you want, all you long for tonight, what you deeply crave is just to feel him. Just to feel him here with you. You remember what it was like to be wrapped in his arms. To be sitting on this very floor and it feeling like God was right next to you holding your hand. To feel his presence over you like a blanket. But recently, you haven't felt that. He just feels distant. Can I borrow your pen? I'll write something on this piece of paper. And if anyone can tell me what it says from your seat, I'll give you $5. Who can read that from where you're sitting?
I can
What does it say?
It says, you look really
That's sin, but that's not what it says. Neelan, you heard my sermon earlier. I know you know what it says. Can anyone see it? Read it. It says Trey's base. Shout out to Trey's base. I think that was a volleyball team. Some of us feel like that tonight. Sorry, I think I just woke a few of you guys up. But seriously, some of us, catch this, some of us feel like that tonight. Like, I know the voice of God is there. I know His presence is in this room, but it's too far. I just can't grasp it. I can't quite get it. Which leads me to my third note, and that is that an apathetic spirit doesn't hear God's voice or sense His presence. Well, maybe you're asking the question, how did I end up like this? If you feel like I've been talking about you tonight, you might have the question, how did I end up like this? And you're praying the prayer, God, I can't hear you. I don't feel your presence. I can't see where you're taking me. I don't know what you want for my life. I don't know why I'm in the situation that I'm in. I don't know why I'm going through the hardship. It's blurry. It's fog. My heart is numb. I don't feel anything. I'm going through these cycles of sin and nothing's changing. And I don't even care anymore. I'm too exhausted. I'm too tired. I don't know what you're doing. How did I get like this? That's a good question to ask. It is a good question to ask. Hopefully by now you've been able to identify your apathy. I got this tree. It is a real tree, in case you were wondering. Yeah. Catch this. Let's say these leaves represent the apathy in your life. Okay? We can point to it and say, hey, maybe I've been able to identify it, right? We've been talking about it, and you can say, you know what, Andrew? It's my heart, right? I'm numb. I don't feel conviction. I don't feel compassion anymore. I don't feel anything. Or maybe you said, you know what, Andrew? It's actually my mind. I can't see what God's doing in my life. I feel blind, like everything's foggy. Maybe you come to the conclusion that for you, it's your spirit, and that you don't hear the voice of God anymore, or that you can't feel His presence. And you want to know how it got there. Well, what you have to do is you have to look at the roots. What's feeding all of this? Why do I feel this way? See, for David, it began with his selfishness, right? When he took on a bunch of wives. And then he sinned. And it spurred him to sin even more. And then he desperately clung to control, right? Trying to have control over the situation he was in. And he was just stuck in this cycle of sin and apathy, unable to get out of it. But for you, maybe it's something different. Maybe you're just exhausted. You know, you've been running the race for so long, you just need a break. You need rest. You need to catch your breath. I mean, you got sports and school and serving at church and family life and friendships and college prep, the expectations, the pressure. It's piled and piled and piled on top of each other and piled on top of you, and you just want to breathe because you're too exhausted to move, too tired to even care. You're apathetic. Well, maybe it's because you need to ask yourself, is all of this in my life healthy? To have all of this busyness? And if the answer is that it's at the expense of your walk with the Lord, the answer is no. It's not worth it. Maybe you're a control freak, just being honest. You know, you've tried so desperately to have control of your life that when things go south, you just throw in the towel and give up. You know, you want to have a certain reputation and your grades need to be perfect. And maybe like David, you've been doing everything you can to keep your life in your control, but you're not sovereign. There's only one who's sovereign. God is sovereign. And the longer that you try to keep things in your control, the more you're going to fail at it, the more you're going to feel empty, and you're going to end up apathetic. Maybe you've lacked discipline. You haven't been reading the Bible. You haven't been praying. You haven't been worshiping. You've been stagnant. You sit down for 2 minutes to read your Bible, but your attention span just is gone. And you don't pray anymore. You know, we're talking about apathy and how a part of that is when our spirit is apathetic, we can't hear God's voice. Can I ask you a question? Do you guys want to hear God's voice? Raise your hand if you want to hear God's voice. That's what I thought. He wants to hear yours too. It's a relationship. It goes both ways. Maybe you've been poisoned by selfishness. It's all me, me, me. And in serving yourself, you haven't been able to keep up with your growing appetite. You take and take and take, but you're never fulfilled. That's apathy. You're only going to feel empty if you follow your selfishness. Maybe it's distractions. You can't expect a passionate, God-centered life if you're spending 6 or 7 hours a day on your phone. You're gaming till the dawn or doom scrolling in your bed like a little potato. You little potato, you just chilling in your bed, just scrolling. Here's the thing, I'm being so serious though. We fill our time with so many pointless things. It's like we're filling ourselves with the candy of the world and wondering why we're not hungry when it's dinner time. You like that? Seriously, reels, TV, video games, all of it. It's like candy. It's okay in moderation. But when you eat too much of it, you get sick. And then you come here for dinner where the meat and potatoes are. You got the worship and the message and the community, and you're just not hungry. You're not feeling it. You're apathetic. Maybe for you it's hopelessness. You've been trying to kick an addiction, but you just can't get out of it. And you feel hopeless. You've just given up. Maybe it's your family. You've been praying for your family life to get better, but it's not. So you stop praying. And you stop caring. You grow apathetic. See, when we set our hope on anything but the glory of God, we open the door to apathy. Results, change, and blessings. If your hope is not built upon the glory of God, if it's built upon what you want God to do for you rather than God Himself, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to feel hopeless. You're going to feel apathetic. And maybe, and Brian, you can go ahead and click to the next slide in case anyone wants to write it down, the roots of apathy. The last one, maybe for you, it's sin. See, the hard truth is that God and sin, they don't coexist. You know, He's with us no matter what, and His forgiveness is always there. But when we live in cycles of sin, without repentance, God doesn't stand for it. And maybe you're struggling with sin that's been going on so long that you don't care anymore. Listen, there is sin in this room. Okay? We're a body of believers, but don't let that fool you. There is sin in this room. Let me tell you, there is gossip in this room. People in this room have been hurt by people in this room. There are lies in this room. There's pride in this room. There's lust in this room. There is sin in this room. But there's also God in this room. Okay, I don't say any of this to condemn you. You know, it's important to look for the roots of your apathy and see the sin and know it for what it is, but it's also important to know that this has no authority over you and it has not changed God's love for you, not one bit. But that can be easy to doubt. We look at ourselves when we say, I'm not worthy of God's love. Look at the roots. They're so deep. Look at my apathy. There's no way God can love me. And we have to look at an even deeper layer. The next question is to ask ourselves, well, if I'm exhausted, why am I exhausted? Why am I a control freak? Why do I lack discipline? Why do I keep going back to this same sin? So we have a problem, don't we? Our sin and our struggle has led us to a place of apathy. But how are we supposed to fight our sin and our struggle if we're apathetic? We're in a cycle. It's like I see my apathy and I beat myself up over it. I can see how I don't care about the things that I know I should. And I know that the roots are here. It's my addiction. It's my selfishness, whatever it is. But I can't fight that because I don't care anymore. How are we supposed to get out of it? It's almost hopeless. Like there's nothing I can do. I'm just stuck in this cycle of sin and apathy. But get this. You're looking at the wrong tree. This tree. This tree is what you should set your eyes to. We get so caught up in trying to fix ourselves. We get stuck in a cycle. Listen, we get stuck in a cycle of trying to fight this and trying to get rid of this, but we can't. We can't do it. You can't fix yourself. You have to look here. Because let me tell you, there is grace, there is hope, there is joy in this symbol. Because of what Jesus did on this cross. He came to this earth for you and died for you. And the moment that you take your eyes off of this cross is the moment that your heart, mind, and spirit drift away from what God has for you. And you might say, Andrew, the cross has already done its work for me. I'm saved. Listen here. The cross is as relevant in your life today as it was the day you were saved. And the moment we take our eyes off of it is the moment we feel exhausted, the moment we feel hopeless, the moment sin gets a stronghold in our lives. We have to look to the cross. See, because our behavior is fueled by our beliefs. And you have to ask yourself tonight, what do I believe about this? What do I believe about this cross? When I see the greatest act of love that has ever happened, do I trust that? Or do I argue with it? Because our beliefs fuel our behavior. And the only way to get out of the cycle of sin and apathy is to set your eyes upon Jesus. Because the cross is the only answer. In a couple weeks, we're going to talk about practicality and how to go from apathy to zeal. But if our eyes aren't set to the cross, none of that's going to matter. Because this is the redeeming work. Which leads me to my life point. And that is that a poor understanding of God is the core of apathy. If we don't get this, and band, you guys can come on up. If we don't get this, if we don't understand this, if we take our eyes off of this, that's when we spiral. And whatever the roots are for you, whatever the apathy looks like in your life, the cross has an answer for you. If you're exhausted, maybe that was for you. This is the place where you find rest. If you've been running the race and you're just tired, set your eyes here. If you've been grasping onto control of your life, this is the place you surrender. This is the place where you abandon yourself with your hands open, saying, Jesus, take my life. I'm giving it to you. I want only what you want. And if you've lacked discipline, you know what you need to do? You need to fall in love with the Lord again. If you haven't been praying, you haven't been worshiping, you haven't been reading, start here. Fall in love with the Lord again. And if you felt hopeless, can I tell you there's power in the name and in the blood of Jesus? This is hope. We have to set our eyes to the cross. And if you're stuck in sin, and you don't feel bad about it anymore, and you're stuck in a cycle, this is redemption. This is the chain-breaking power you need. So don't for a minute think that you can stare at yourself and try to fix yourself, because you can't. And if you don't know Jesus, you need to set your eyes to the cross tonight. Maybe thinking to yourself, Andrew, I'm not a person of apathy and I don't have sin in my life. You're wrong. Okay? The Bible says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You're as blind as David was. You need someone to spell it out for you. Maybe you're looking at me and saying, Andrew, I'm too far gone. The roots are too deep. And the apathy has a chokehold on me. No, it does not. If you look to the cross. That's my encouragement to you tonight. And to identify the apathy in your life. Find the sin and the struggle and see where it is in your life. But do not leave here tonight without looking to the cross. You guys can come up front for worship.